guests, Her Worship the Mayor Judy Hardacre, welcome. The Very Reverend Peter Rickman, Dean of the Cathedral of St. Peter, welcome. Mr. Sam Sifuiva, Principal Advisor of the Race Relations Human Rights Commission in Auckland, welcome, Sam. Mr. Teddy Poplinger, Chief of Mission, Israeli Embassy, Baruch haba. Our local members of Parliament, Mr. David Bennett, Mr. Tim McIndoe, Ms. Sue Maroney, and Mr. David Swartz, long-time leader in the wider Jewish community and today representing the Holocaust Center of New Zealand. Baruch haba, David. And to the representatives of the Return Services Association, the Migrant Resource Center, the Waikato Interfaith Council, people of the community of Hamilton, visitors to Hamilton City, and of course, especially welcome to our co-hosts, the Christian Friends of Israel. It's very humbling and gratifying today to see such a diverse group of people assembled in this park. This occasion is focused on the memory of people who perished over 60 years ago in faraway Europe. But we are also here to remember the many righteous and brave non-Jewish people who put their lives on the line to help others and to support those who survived the Holocaust, their children, grandchildren, and now, Baruch Hashem, great-grandchildren, who also carry a responsibility to tell the difficult story of their heritage. I ask you to take this occasion into your hearts and to embrace the memory of those victims of persecution and to stand together with the survivors and their descendants, some of whom are standing amongst you here today in this audience, to care for them as you would your own families. This is a time we set aside any political differences, our cultural, our age, our gender differences. Indeed, let us meet today in a spirit of love and inclusiveness, and to consider what happened then as a lesson for all of humanity. Rabbi Hillel, our great scholar, born in Babylon 2,000 years ago, returned to study the Torah at the age of 40. He wrote a great many wonderful and important things. He wrote, "Whosoever destroys a soul, it is considered as if he destroyed an entire world. And whosoever saves a life, it is considered as if he saved an entire world." Most famously, his ethic of reciprocity, which you might know as the Golden Rule, he wrote, "That which is hateful to you, do not do to your fellow." That is the whole Torah. The rest is an explanation. Go and learn. But he also wrote this deceptively simple truth. B'makom she'en anashim hishtadel lihyot ish. In a place where no one behaves like a human being, you must strive to be human. Today, let us stand together for this commemoration as fellow humans. The Jewish community in the Waikato area welcome you all here today with our warmest and most personal greetings of friendship. Shalom. I'll hand over to my co-host, Dennis McLeod of the Christian Friends of Israel.
Thank you, Sylvie, Mayor, Dean, Teddy. Nice to have you all along here with us today. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to acknowledge Len Knaps, the president of the local Return Servicemen Association. And there's a group of us here on that side as well. This day started off by visiting a tree planting in Auckland for a righteous Gentile, and we were given some little totra sticks about so high. And I contacted the city council and said, where could we plant these in memory of the Holocaust? Well, this is the result. And the end result was we had to get a bigger tree because the other one, if somebody stepped backwards, where's the tree? So we had to get a bigger tree. So it's our privilege to be able to stand here today on this day with the Jewish Society and the Jewish people as Christian friends of Israel, working to support the support the Jewish people wherever that may call us to be. And so we thank you all for coming along, and I echo those words of Sylvie, that the words of Yeshua, he said, blessed are the peacemakers, because they will become the children of God. And so we thank you all for turning up, and I'm sure that the support to the Jewish people will be warmly accepted here today. Thank you. Now we call on, Werimu, is it? Werimu Puki, and for the karakia.
I ngā iwi hurai. Kei te mihi atu ki o koutou e tai mai nei I roto te kaupapa e tēnei ahi ahi. Ma ngā iwi I roto te mama I whakaaro I roto te pakanga o te ao tūrua, o te ao tūrua, pakanga tūrua. To the Jewish people, to the kindred tribes of Israel. On behalf of Ngāti Wairere, we welcome you all here today in order to reflect back on the loss of many families during the time of the war. And for me, I do have a personal connection. My grandfather was in the Māori battalion, and he was part of the 39ers that went over at the instruction of South Rangata. And when I think about the effort of the Māori battalion and how they fought shoulder to shoulder with other soldiers in the theatre of war, that we fought, that when I think about those great soldiers, I think about the sacrifices to save our fellow people. E mihi ana ki o koutou, I raro te mana o te atua, ki Rungarawa. We are united here under the love of God. Regardless of all our different tongues and faiths, we are united here today. And from mō ngā waka, mō ngā hauewha, from the canoes of the four corners of the earth, I'd also like to acknowledge salam. I better start learning a bit more Israeli language, actually. My grandfather came back from the Second World War learning and spoke 4 languages. He spoke Māori as his first, but he spoke another Shri to add to it. But in support of today's event and the symbolic gesture of this tree, I look upon it as like a symbol of life. The roots talks about the deeper connections of people who have a right to belong here. The branches reach out into the future, so we don't lose sight of memory of the event that has shaped our world, and particularly those people who were lost during that unfortunate period of history. So without further ado, I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of our Mayor, Julie, our councillors, council staff, our many members of our communities, the community leaders. Nō reira, kei te mihi atu ki o koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. I'll just do a brief karakia. Ki tō mātou mate nui te rangi, ko mātou e nei, ko tamariki ka whakamoimati atu nei, ki a koe, ko te whakamoi harolo hoki, he te ingoa tapu. Nau mai ki waiganui a mātou e tēnei wā. Nā e te wairua tapu ki a mātou he ngaro. E tuku mai te wairua ki rungi o mātou. Hei haora, e te aroaro hōhulu o ngai tūkina. E te atua, ko koe te timatanga, ko koe te whakamutunga, he whakahonore te ingoa o tō tama ko i Ukraiti, e te wairua tapu, ake, ake tonu atu. Amen. Kia ora tātou katoa.
I'm going to, we're going to sing. If anybody would like to sing with me, please come up and do so. We're going to sing a song called Eli Eli. And I'd like to just introduce you to the song before we sing it. In 1921, a young woman called Hannah Shenish was born in Yugoslavia. And she managed in 1939 to get out of Europe from, sorry, she was born in, she was born in Hungary. Did I say Hungary? Yes. She managed to get out of Europe and moved to Israel, where she studied agriculture and lived on a kibbutz next to the sea called Sdot Yam. And during her few years there, she wrote a lot of poetry. In 1942, she decided to volunteer and was parachuted back into Yugoslavia to help the partisans. And in 1943, she moved over to Hungary, and in Hungary she was captured by the Germans and executed by firing squad. Hannah Shenish, while she was in Israel, one of the things that she did was that she wrote a lot of poetry. One of the poems that she wrote was put to music and became a symbol of the desire for life. And she became, so this is the song. Eli, Eli, which means, my God, Shelo yigamer le'olam. May these things never end. Rishrush shel hamayim, the sand and the sea. Chol v'hayam is the sand and the sea. Rishrush shel hamayim is the sound of water. Barak hashamayim, the lightning and the turbulence in the sky. V'tfilat ha'adam, and the prayer of man. So this is the song. Is there anyone who'd like to come and sing it with me? Eli, Eli, shelo yigamer le'olam, hachol v'hayam, rishrush shel hamayim, rak hashamayim, tfilat ha'adam, chol v'hayam, rishrush shel hamayim, barak hashamayim, tfilat ha'adam. Thank you.
To worship the Mayor, Julie Hardacre from the Hamilton City Council. Let's give her a warm welcome as she comes to speak.
Thank you very much for that. I do want to start by acknowledging Dennis and the Christian Friends of Israel. Thank you for that introduction, Dennis, and also the Waikato Jewish Association and everyone here today. Thank you for taking the time to come on what is a very poignant and special time for Hamiltonians and particularly for Jewish people. I also want to acknowledge my fellow councillors, the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Gallagher, Councillor Wilson here today, and Hamilton City Council staff. Thank you very much for joining us. The purpose of this memorial is to remember Jewish people who suffered persecution during events in our world's history, and it's also to acknowledge the many people who risked their own lives to help Jewish people during those dark times. So the Council's very pleased to support this tree planting, which is a symbol of those times, to ensure that this city has a lasting memory of the Holocaust. I think it's always very important that we remember these world events because it's in the memory of them that we continue to learn from those events. Next year we'll start the commemorations of 100 years of World War I. And for me and for the city, it's important that we now have this symbol to be included as part of those commemorations. You know, it's at times like this that we stop and we reflect on our world's history. And for me, having travelled through Europe and visited many of the places that are so vivid in the memories of Jewish people, I personally really struggle to understand how those events could ever have occurred. And it's only when you go to those places that you are struck by the incredulous nature of what that history is about. So I want to say that I acknowledge and admire the strength and determination of all Jewish people then and today to move past those events. All of us here have a collective responsibility today to ensure that no one person, people or group is oppressed or victimised again. And the sad thing, of course, is that today these things still occur. So to all of you here, all of our Hamiltonian Jewish people in our community, our city remembers those times in our history, our world's history, and we stand with you in that suffering from the past, and thank you for acknowledging today your ancestors and your community throughout the world in our own city. And like Wiramu, I think it is particularly wonderful that it's a tree that will be the memorial, because there's something very special about life and the growing of life and reaching up to the sun, because like Wiramu, it is about the future, and as that tree grows, while we will remember the past, we will also be thinking about what the future brings for our world. So well done everyone that's got this together, and our city is with you, all of our Jewish community. Thank you.
I'd like to introduce now the Dean of the St. Peter's Cathedral, Right Reverend Peter Rickman. Please welcome. Come on, please welcome him. Come on.
Kia ora and shalom. Good afternoon, everybody. It's an honour and a privilege to be here this afternoon. I'm here to represent Archbishop David Moxon, Archbishop of the Anglican Church in New Zealand. It's an honour, a double honour, not only to be here, but to represent him as well. As you can probably tell from my accent, I'm not from round these parts. I'm from the northern half of the world. And for many years, one of the most painful realities for European Christians has been to deal with the past complicity of so many Christians and so many churches in the Nazis' attempt to exterminate the Jewish people. There is a long history of Christian anti-Semitism. It's fed into numerous persecutions of Jewish people over the centuries, including the Holocaust, Shoah, and these need to be acknowledged. 20 years ago, as a young man, I was travelling around Austria, and I met a group of young Austrian men. I was shocked by their forceful views that denied the extent of the Nazi atrocities. They were passionate in their denial of the Holocaust, and such a view was abhorrent to me. It was abhorrent because, like so many of you, the family has its own history, its own story. I grew up with a friend of my grandfather. He'd served in the army, and he was demobbed and returned home in 1946. He was never the same again. On April the 15th in 1945, my grandfather's friend, Sidney, had found himself amongst the first through the gates of Bergen-Belsen as part of that liberating force. And there he saw the 13,000 unburied corpses and the 53,000 starving men and women, the survivors of the camp, and the children. many of whom were still to perish following liberation. These scenes were described by a journalist who was also with him that day from the BBC. And he wrote these words: "Here, over an acre of ground, lay dead and dying people. You could not see which was which. The living lay with their heads against the corpses, and around them moved the awful ghostly procession of emaciated, aimless people, with nothing to do and with no hope of life, unable to move out of your way, unable to look at the terrible sights around them. Babies had been born here, tiny wizened things that could not live. A mother, driven mad, screamed at a British soldier to give her milk for her child, and then ran off crying terribly. He opened the bundle and found that the baby had been dead for days. This day at Belsen was the most horrible of my life." A few years ago I made pilgrimage to the Yad Vashem in Jerusalem. We walked the Avenue of the Gentiles. We visited the grave of Oskar Schindler and others. We walked and we wept our way through the Children's Memorial, where the names of the 2 million children who perished are read out. There are those who deny its reality, those who question its severity, but there are those who were there, those who remember, but their numbers sadly are fewer each year. And of course there is people like us, people who gather in places like here all around the world on days like today. And we gather to remember, just in case, as the memorial says just over there, in case lest we forget. On Yom HaShoah, on this day of remembrance, we remember and we renew our pledge to not forget. For if we forget, we are destined to repeat. Thank you.
I'd just like to introduce our next speaker, Sam Safuvia from the Human Rights Commission in Auckland. Sam?
O le whata alofa lava a atu. O le paia mauluanga o le aso Yom HaShoah. E aha te mea nui o te ao. He tangata, he tangata, he tangata. Very special greetings to you all, to your worship, the Mayor. Shalom to Tiri, and welcome to this part of Aotearoa, New Zealand, and to the many people who come to acknowledge, to stand with our friends who are of Jewish heritage. Greetings to the MPs from various parties that are here. I bring special greetings from the Chief Commissioner David Rutherford, and also for the newly appointed Race Relations Commissioner, Dame Susan Devoy, who are both unable to be here, and I'm representing their roles today. I want to make special, particular acknowledgements to the Waikato Jewish Association, the Waikato Interfaith Council for their work, and also to the Christian Jewish Association that are part and parcel of this. And very warm greetings to David Schwartz from the Holocaust Centre of New Zealand, who are very special and valued partners with the Commission as we celebrate each year in Wellington with you. In 1948, when the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was signed, it was seen as a solution in bringing nations together and adhering to a set of principles, starting with, and I quote, "All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with the reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood." Today in the Waikato, we're here to commemorate the past atrocities of the world, and in particular those events during the world wars. But we also recognise, as the Mayor's also indicated, that since then many other atrocities have occurred to this present day. And I think it's important that I understand it's the 60th anniversary of Yom HaShoah, which is a day that's set aside annually to remember and never forget the atrocities of Jews and other minorities in the Holocaust of the world wars. It's not as if a single day can possibly suffice as a day of remembering the horrors of that event. This day can do very little to erase the anguish and the suffering and the enduring hurt that are shared amongst many who are victims and the many people and their neighbours and their communities. But what we can do is that we can stand alongside our dear friends and their families and their communities. New Zealand is a country of many diverse groups and beliefs. Our country's identity and core values are embedded in our Indigenous history, our settler heritage, and the place we have in Aotearoa, New Zealand, Asia Pacific. We've travelled here from many continents, faiths and cultures and recognise and acknowledge that history. And we take that history, such as the events of the Holocaust, with us because it forms our identity, our set of values that we wish to achieve, that we dream for and aspire to achieve. But we should never forget. We also recall the efforts of non-Jews such as Vroel Wallenberg and many others who stood alongside their fellow humans in support and solidarity. I just want to acknowledge Egan Schoenberger, who settled here in the Waikato, and the contribution that he and his family and many other Jews who are also connected to the Holocaust Centre of New Zealand, who have continued to highlight the past and also continued to contribute to New Zealand's rich, diverse future, where we all enjoy to be free and equal in dignity and rights. There's a saying from where I come from, and it's a little place in the Pacific called Samoa. And we always say this, and it says, and it's a term, o manuia lava o le malanga. Every good wish, every good will, and every strength in your journey, and your journeys with us together. Kafte lava, kia ora koutou.
I'd now like to introduce to you Mr. Teddy Poplinger, Charge d'Affaires now at the Israeli Embassy in Wellington. Teddy, I met him about a year or so ago and we've become, I believe, very good friends, and it's nice to have you along here, Teddy. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Shalom. Friends of Israel, Jews, Christians, Muslims, friends of humanity. I have the privilege and honor to represent the State of Israel in this special tree planting ceremony in the memory of those who perished in the Holocaust. 6 million Jews and 5 million people of other ethnicities were brutally murdered in Europe during the Holocaust. They were all victims of hatred, racism, and discrimination. To this day, we are still appalled by the atrocities of the Nazis and continue to wonder how it could happen that intellectual and educated people planned a systematic extermination of another people. How could civilized people be so easily persuaded to believe and follow the Nazi propaganda and participate in those horrific acts? How could enlightened people turn into ruthless, murderous monsters? These thoughts are beyond our human comprehension, and I believe will always remain unresolved. One thing, however, that we do realize was that it all began with the German indoctrination. Education played a major role in passing on the Nazi message. In Nazi Germany, adults were indoctrinated to believe in one's superiority over another, while teenagers were educated to hate, and children were taught to have a lack of respect for people from other races. We also know that it started with words of incitement and hatred, which were not interrupted and stopped immediately, thus turned into malicious actions. Today we say we will never forget. Those horrible acts cannot be repeated. This is our moral obligation to those millions of men, women, and children who were mass murdered as a direct result of discrimination. We must do all we can to tell the story to those dark days of humanity and to pass on its lesson to future generations. The Embassy of Israel is proud to be part of an important worldwide project in which teachers and educators from all around the world arrive to Israel to learn about the Holocaust. The project provides a great opportunity where the educators are equipped with techniques, tools, resources, and ideas. Back in their countries, they can present the information effectively and teach young generations that intolerance can lead to disastrous results. It is through teaching of the Holocaust that our children can learn about love of the other, tolerance, respect, and equal rights for all men. This year was the first time that New Zealand participated in this project, which ran in cooperation with the Holocaust Center of New Zealand. A group of 22 teachers and educators traveled to Israel at the beginning of the year, and based on their feedback for all those who were involved, it seems that it was a great success. Today, we are here to plant a tree, a symbol of life, regeneration, and growth. I do hope that this gentle sapling will grow into a large and strong tree under which young New Zealanders will gather to honor the memory of those millions who lost their lives during the Holocaust. May their memory be blessed. Yehi zichram baruch.
Very surely, education is the way to make change. I invite David Swartz, representing the Holocaust Center of New Zealand, to now tell you about what is happening in that sphere. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvie, and greetings from Wellington. It's lovely to come to a balmy Waikato afternoon and see how the trees actually grow straight up and down. Still, Wellington is a special place, and the printed program gives all of us a really admirable and succinct statement about why we are here this afternoon, to bring together at one time and in one place remembrance thought, and future action. The Holocaust Centre of New Zealand, which I have the honour to represent here this afternoon, is dedicated to exactly those aims. Its main objective is, I'll quote, to tell of humanity lost, of resilience and survival, and through the stories of refugees who came to New Zealand, teach tolerance, courage, and racial harmony. That's the Holocaust Centre's commitment to ongoing and future action, to teach the history of the Shoah as widely as possible, but convert the stories of what happened then into contemporary lessons that we hope will give us a better New Zealand society. Our programs reach out across the whole country, and as you've just heard from Teddy, the Holocaust Centre was involved in sending 22 New Zealand teachers to Yad Vashem in January. Regretfully, there was nobody representing Hamilton at that time. Well, Murray Armstrong went from Tauranga, but we hope that in future years there will be a secondary teacher from Hamilton who will go on that program, because it was a very successful and very inspiring one to those who went on it. How does the Holocaust Centre base its education on what happened in the Shoah? One example is that after showing school pupils the pictures of crowds watching synagogues being destroyed, books being burnt, old bearded Jewish men being forcibly shaven, and Jewish women on their knees scrubbing the pavement with toothbrushes, we asked the school pupils, would you too be a bystander? Would you stand and watch others in your town, your neighbours, your schoolmates being humiliated and hurt and having their property destroyed? We asked them to do the opposite, to speak out against and take action against playground bullying, cyberbullying, and to understand and appreciate the diversity of New Zealand society, and to shun the prejudice and hatred that can lead to demonization and destruction of other humans. And I'm glad that both Dennis and Sylvie referred to the righteous among nations, and Peter as well, because these are people who were not bystanders, who stood out as wonderful individuals who would not go along with the crowd, with the mob, but put their own lives at risk to save the lives of Jews. A very wonderful thing to do. And we hold out those people as inspirations to the school pupils who come on our educational programs. We are not the only organisation doing this human rights education. The Human Rights Commission, organisations, voluntary organisations like the Peace Foundation are among many others. But the Holocaust Centre does feel an extra resolve to do this work because we carry in us our family and institutional memories of a society which broke down and perpetrated the worst possible things against its own citizens. And that's something we don't want to see happening again. Planting a tree, as has been already referred to, is a wonderful thing to do. Remembering and committing ourselves to improve New Zealand, these are all positive, rewarding things, and it's wonderful that we are here this afternoon to do these things together. Thank you.
The Honourable David Bennett, the Honourable Tim McIndoe, and the Honourable Sue Moroney. Welcome all three. Kia ora tātou katoa, shalom. Such a beautiful word, isn't it? Such a beautiful word.
Yes, it is painful, but it is so important. So important to be here today to remember the lessons. And it's been painful to listen to some of the stories that we've heard here today, but important for our future, because I think it reminds us all that an injustice to one is an injustice to all. And that's just not a lesson from history. That's something I think we all need to reflect on and keep in our minds today for the sort of country that we want to continue to build here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. That it's not okay for any group in any society to be treated as second-class citizens. That it is in fact a very dangerous thing for us, any of us, to be bystanders and allow that to continue to happen. And that the appropriate response when these things happen is not to stand by and say, thank goodness it's not me. That the appropriate response is to say that an injustice to one is an injustice to all. There's been a bit of a garden produce theme to today. Earlier today, I joined with Tim McIndoe. We joined forces, and I'd have to say that Tim was more of a force than I was in a pumpkin competition earlier, some produce from our gardens. And in continuing on that theme, and hoping to balance up my part of the contribution, I've bought some produce from my own garden today, which I hope to be able to put here on behalf of the MPs as part of a commemoration for today's very important occasion. And just in closing, can I thank the Waikato Jewish Association and the Christian Friends of Israel for the work that you have done here today to bring us together, to reflect and to join together in our solidarity to ensure that we never see these atrocities ever again in our world, in our country, or anywhere in our community. Thank you.
Shalom. Good afternoon, everybody. Just wanted to thank Sylvia and Dennis for organising today, and especially to the Waikato Jewish Association. I think this is the first public event that I've been to and that we've had in the city for a number of years, and I think it's very important that as a community you do show to the rest of us and also make us all involved in the history, and that's how we understand and the education comes forward. And I'd like to thank especially members of the Jewish community in Hamilton for their contribution to the city, and especially in the education field where there's a very strong contribution, and that's very valued in our city. Today here we have many representatives, mayor, councillors, various religions, and I'd like to thank the Interfaith Group for organising that, and I'd like to thank those religions for coming along and supporting this event. That shows your understanding and your desire to be here today, so we thank you for that. Many other members of the community, schools involved, city councillors, once again, thank you for your attendance. This is a very special place for our city. We have Anzac Day here every year, and members of the armed forces are here representing that. And to plant a tree in this very special place, representing this very historic but sad part of our world's history, is something that I think we can take a lot of comfort from. It shows the regrowth and the nature of people wanting to look forward, remembering the past, but also looking at a brighter future going forward. And I think this is a very important place to plant this tree, and a very important day to do it. We also want to pay tribute to the Jewish people that have suffered so much over so many years, and this is one symbolic way that we can look at that history and all the other history of the world where we, as people, haven't lived up to what we would all expect of each other. So thank you very much for your attendance today and for our being part of your occasion today. Thank you.
Members of the Waikato Jewish Association, representatives of the Christian Friends of Israel, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and young ladies and gentlemen. When you're about the 10th speaker on the program, it's very difficult to say something new, so I hope you'll allow me to address some of my comments to the young members of the audience who are here, and I want to say how wonderful it is that you are all here. Kia ora tātou to everyone, shalom. A wise person once said, and our Dean paraphrased it at the conclusion of his remarks, that those who fail to learn from the mistakes of history are doomed to repeat them. And this is one of the most poignant occasions when we reflect on just how true those words are. Because as our Mayor said, while we are talking about an event that is historic, it is within the lifetime of many of our older survivors and representatives of our community. But we have in more recent times seen atrocities of a similar theme, fortunately not with such dreadful numbers, but nevertheless those words ethnic cleansing stand out as an example in recent times of the fact that these things can happen again if we don't remain constantly vigilant. And it is very, very important, therefore, that we all are aware of what happened. So to the young people who are here, could I appeal to you to study history, to ensure that you grow up knowing what happened. The Holocaust saw the slaughter of 6 million people. That is the entire population of New Zealand, and then the entire population of Greater Auckland thrown in again. Quite staggering. It was happening before the war, but few of us knew about it. It was actually only after the war had finished that we became aware of the true magnitude of it. And so to the young people, I want to encourage you not only to study history, but to know that history sometimes comes alive through literature and film. I want you to encourage the younger children to read The Diary of Anne Frank. And I'd ask the children to look around. I'm going to ask all the adults here to put up your hand if you've read The Diary of Anne Frank. Have a look, children. You must read it. It's a terribly moving story, an ultimately tragic one, but nevertheless it's an important one as you hear about the true story. It is a diary, after all, of a family who suffered as they were hidden in a loft for many, many years to escape the Nazis who were coming for them and for so many others in their circumstances. I want you, if you can, to watch a film called The Boy in Striped Pyjamas. You may know of it. Terribly moving, and shows how children sometimes can look at the stupidity of adults and teach us lessons, and it's a good film to watch. There's a modern book called The Book Thief, and I'm not entirely sure, it's Marcus Zhukas, I'm not entirely sure how to say his surname, but remember The Book Thief. It's probably for older teenagers and adults. Again, a very moving story. And the other one that you must watch, and we've heard his name mentioned today, is Schindler's List, to understand just how dreadful the suffering was, how terrifying it was. And as David has just said, this is the ideal spot for us to be recognizing all of that. I'm so proud to be here today to stand in solidarity with our Waikato Jewish community and in sympathy with the international Jewish community. 18 days from now, we'll be back here. Many of you who are here will be here and will be joined literally by hundreds, thousands of others as we remember the sacrifices, the horrific losses. And we must learn from history to ensure that they are never repeated. Shalom. Thank you so much for being here and for the opportunity to contribute to this very poignant and historic event.
Thank you very much, all three of you, for your very important and special words, and particularly thank you, Tim, at the end. I reinforce education, as we all do. I know in the Jewish community, this is something we value above all things, is learning. This part of us guides this part of us. And so now we have come to the part of our program where we want to offer up some prayers for people that we knew and for people that we didn't know, but for whom there was not an opportunity to say Kaddish, to say farewell. And at this time, I'd like to invite anyone who wishes to do so, both from the Jewish community and outside, who wish to remember somebody and include them in our remembrance and the saying of the Kaddish. When we've done that, we will then recite El Molei Rachamim. I think most of our Jewish community have copies of that. Hopefully we can lead you in that prayer followed by the Kaddish. So we'd like to invite you to come forward and use the microphone or speak from where you are and recite, name, or sing. Rest assured that the memorial and the prayers that we say here today, whether you've named them at the microphone or not, are still very much part of the blessings and the hopes we bring for their everlasting memory and their spirits. So I'd like to invite members of our Jewish community who want to help me out here to help recite El Molei Rachamim in better Hebrew than I have. And we can do that together, a group of us. Please come up and support that. All the fluent Hebrew speakers, bevakasha. Jewish tradition, there's a thing called a minyan. You may not be aware of. It takes 10 men, traditionally, in the old tradition, 10 men to send a blessing up with sincerity and strength. And our community is blessed by having men and women. So together, we'd like to establish at least a minyan. So any others, even if you come and stand with us, don't be shy.
Can I ask those that are seated to please stand up? I'm going to recite the Kaddish with friends of the association here. The Kaddish is a traditional Jewish hymn of praise to God, whose central theme is of the sanctification of God's name. Kaddish is often recited as part of the mourning rituals in Judaism in all prayer services, as well as at funerals and memorials. The mourner recites this prayer as an expression of faith, even in the midst of tragedy and grief. The opening words of this prayer are inspired by Ezekiel 38:23, a vision of God becoming great in the eyes of all nations. And I would ask those that are able to sing along with me. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah Bi'alma divrach irutei V'yamlich malchutei B'chayechon u'v'yomechon U'v'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael Bagala Uvizman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevarach le'alam ulal me'almaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpar v'yitroman v'yitnasei v'yithadar v'yithaleh v'yithalal Shemei de Kudesha Barechu Le'ela mincho berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata Damiran bialma v'imuru amen.
And so, what better way to turn the page on history than to put it in the hands of our children and of life in general, new life in general. So we've come to the point of the main event where we're going to put our lovely tree into its living place. I wouldn't say resting place because it's going to be busy doing a lot of growing and a lot of living, and probably lots of people walking under it and talking to it. I know we will. So if we could please request the following people to come and assist us with the tree planting, which would be, of course, Her Worship the Mayor, Mr. Poplinger from the Israeli Embassy, Reverend Rickman, Sam Tepuiva, and Joseph and Jessica Leicht. Please come forward. So now comes the challenging part of lifting this not inconsiderable tree. We expected a little sapling, into the hole. So if we can share that responsibility. And if you'd like to join me in reading the prayer, which is printed on your form there. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oseh ma'aseh bereshit. Praise are you, eternal God, sovereign of the universe, who makes the works of creation. And so if each of you would please put a little spade of soil in, and anyone else who feels moved to come and help, please do come and put a spadeful. We'd like all of you who've made an investment in this community through the bringing up of children to put in a little spade. There's plenty. Come on up. Mothers, fathers, children, aunties, uncles, grandpas, grandmas, uncles. I said uncles twice. Especially the children.
Elaine, could you come, please? He's there, so.
Please, yes, our representatives from the Return Services Association in particular, and we thank you for the service. And the Interfaith Council. This tree belongs to all of us.
Ki atua he whakawhitai, he whakaoranga, he ni nei rākau i roto tō mana o tō kaha. I whakaingo te ingoa, he whakapono te ingoa hui karakati me te wai ruatapu. Amen.
This tree is also accompanied by a plaque which sits here on the ground, explaining why the tree is here. And once again, we're going to call on our young people, Joseph Light and Jessica, to support him, to read what is actually written on this plaque.
This liquid amber tree was planted as a memorial to all those who perished in the Holocaust during World War II from 1939 to 1945, and to those who sacrificed their lives to save Jewish people during that time. May it serve as a living reminder of the evils of discrimination, oppression, and genocide of all people all over the world. Planted and dedicated by the Waikato Jewish Association and Christian Friends of Israel on the Holocaust Remembrance Day, 7th of April 2013.
Those were our juniors, and now we'd like to hand over to a senior member of our community, Rita Indick, to complete our thoughts for this segment of the ceremony. I'd just like to remind you that following this, we will be moving to the Gardens Pavilion for the candle lighting and further reception. So,
true, we are often too weak to stop injustices, but the least we can do is to protest against them. True, we are too poor to eliminate hunger, but in feeding one child, we protest against hunger. True, we are powerless against death, but as long as we help one man, one woman, one child live 1 hour longer in safety and dignity, we affirm a human's right to live. A comment by Elie Wiesel. One more short piece here. In a world where the weak were tormented by oppressors, our Torah taught us to love the poor and the stranger. A heritage of justice has come down to us. Where the sword was sovereign, we were commanded to seek peace and pursue it. A heritage of peace has come down to us. All this now is ours. Ours the teaching, ours the task, to make the heritage live, for it is our life and the length of our days. From the gates of prayer. Thank you.
Ose shalom bimroma, uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru, amen. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really talking on behalf of the Waikato Jewish Association. If you take a look around us, we are in the most beautiful surroundings, and the weather has been really kind to us. But it makes it so difficult to comprehend that conflict and strife has taken place in the past and is still taking place today. But it is on occasions like these that it gives us an opportunity to have compassion for those who have to deal with these atrocities and the hardships on a daily basis. It reinforces how extremely lucky we are to live in New Zealand. I would really like to thank the Christian Friends of Israel for being instrumental in this planting. It would have been incredibly easy to think about doing it, but not actually execute it. Yet they have taken the time, along with the members of the Waikato Jewish Association and the Hamilton City Council, to pick an appropriate tree, plant it on a relevant date with an inspiring message printed on a plaque for all those who are passing to read. As a parent and a member of the Waikato Jewish Association, I would really like to say thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to include our children in this very valuable lesson, and that has been repeated time and time today. To remember the past, you can learn from it and influence the future. This tree will mean that all the future generations will read the plaque and not be allowed to forget the past. In the words of Anne Frank, it is wonderful that nobody need wait a single moment before starting to improve the world. I am sure that you will join me today in agreeing that this planting does just that. So thank you so much for your time and attention, and we would love to see you all back at the Hamilton Gardens. Thank you.
A closing prayer from the Council of Christian and Jews, which was used on another Holocaust Memorial Day on a different shore. Blessed are you, Lord, God of all creation. For your goodness we have this time to gather to learn the truth of ourselves. We cannot always feel joy for this life. We know too much of lives that have been lost. Give us courage when the news is bad, to bless you, the one true judge. God, gracious beyond our imagining, we want to trust that you are never more powerful than when you are with those in the rawest need. Give us the courage to do the right thing, to speak truth, to oppose what must be opposed, to build bridges with strangers through the one who is both familiar and known. Amen.
In closing, we'd just like to thank each and every one of you for coming here today. And I'd also like just to mention to our Mayor, the thanks to the City Council, and particularly Gina. She was very helpful in getting this day going. So thank you, Gina. She's still here somewhere, is she? Give her a clap. Go on. And as we part from here, I think it's in Leviticus 19:18, it says, love your neighbour as yourself. And Yeshua also repeated that when asked what is the greatest commandment. Love your neighbour as yourself. Let us this tree be a remembrance of just that, loving our neighbour as ourselves. And so once again, on behalf of the Jewish Society and Christian Friends of Israel, we thank you very dearly for coming and attending and supporting this event today. Thank you very much.